Herein lies a crime that shocked the nation of Denmark, a country renowned for its peace and low crime rate. On February 5, 2022, as the sun set on a Saturday night, the first weekend since the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions, a disturbing event was about to unfold. Mia Skotthawk, just 7 years old, and her friends were filled with excitement, eager for a night of partying and good times. Mia, having just completed her second semester in nursing school, looked forward to socializing with her friends. For many, this night signaled a return to normalcy after the pandemic. Yet for Mia, the phrase "return to normal" would soon take on a far darker meaning. The night was bitterly cold in Aalborg, with temperatures plummeting below freezing. Dressed for the indoor bars and clubs she planned to visit, Mia, like many other revelers, was unprepared for the impending darkness. Mia wore a black top and black pants, her long curly blonde hair cascading down her sides. Comfortable white sneakers adorned her feet, and she carried a black purse slung over her shoulder. She blended seamlessly into the crowd of university students, all seeking to unwind and enjoy their weekend. That night, Mia and her friends headed to Denmark's largest party street in Aalborg, where they spent hours hopping from bar to bar, club to club. The night culminated at Hades' beer bar, where Mia danced and drank, reveling in the freedom of youth before they concluded their night at Club Wolf. As the clock struck 6 a.m., the club began to close its doors, and the energy of the night began to wane. Yet Mia, with a desire to keep the party going, remained undeterred. A friend later recalled that Mia was slightly intoxicated, dancing with strangers and embracing people she had just met, behavior typical of a friendly 22-year-old in Denmark. Outside the club, Mia exchanged brief words with her friends before they decided to go their separate ways. They assumed she would take the bus home, planning to reconnect later. Little did they know, this would be the last time they would see her that night. If you're captivated by true crime stories told in a compelling format, you've come to the right place. I delve deep into each case, and if you appreciate these narratives, please hit that like button and subscribe for updates on new cases. Welcome to Crimes and Anatomy. Let's delve into the mystery. 13 hours had elapsed since Mia bid her friends farewell, and her family's concern began to mount as they realized they had not seen or heard from her all day. Initially, they reached out to her boyfriend, hoping he might have seen her or know her whereabouts. To their dismay, he reported he hadn't heard from Mia at all that day. Their worry deepened, knowing Mia was a responsible young woman who always communicated her plans. Contacting her friends brought little comfort, as none had heard from Mia since 6 a.m. Alarmed, her parents decided to file a missing person report with the North Jutland Police Department. Driven by desperation, Mia's family also took to Facebook, publicly pleading for anyone with information on her whereabouts to come forward. The community rallied around them, sharing posts and spreading the word. Given the circumstances surrounding her sudden disappearance and Mia's known sense of responsibility, the North Jutland Police took immediate action, treating her case as a worst-case scenario. They understood the urgency of the situation, believing that the sooner they began their search, the greater the chance of locating Mia safely. Without hesitation, the police launched a massive investigation, calling on the public to preserve and share any photos or information that could aid in their search. As social media buzzed with posts urging the community to spread the word, the gravity of Mia Skotthawk's sudden disappearance weighed heavily on the North Jutland Police. Knowing her responsible character, they refused to take any chances, even in a country known for its low crime rate. Treating her case as a worst-case scenario, the police believed that swift action was crucial. They understood that the sooner they could investigate and locate Mia, the better her chances of being found alive. A massive investigation was immediately launched, with authorities urging the public to preserve and share any photographs that might aid in the search. In the frantic search for Mia Skotthawk, investigators scoured recordings from cell phones and other devices captured in the area that fateful morning. This was a bustling district, frequented by many, and they believed that someone must have unknowingly recorded Mia in her last moments. The response was nothing short of overwhelming. Nearly 400 calls, photos, videos, and messages poured in from concerned citizens across North Jutland, all eager to assist in the desperate quest for information about Mia. The nation came together, united in their determination to locate Mia. However, the task ahead was daunting. Meticulously sifting through hours of footage in search of any clue that could reveal her whereabouts, Mia was a typical 22-year-old with a life free of any criminal history. Born on September 19, 1999, she embarked on her academic journey at West Highlands Gymnasium in 2016. Mia's passion for nursing drove her to the University of Applied Sciences, UCN, in Aalborg, where she was dedicated to her studies and dreams. 6 hours had slipped away since Mia was last seen. The police renewed their appeal to the citizens of North Jutland, urging anyone who may have witnessed anything to step forward. Meanwhile, detectives combed through the footage with unwavering diligence. They began cross-examining individuals who knew Mia, as well as anyone she might have interacted with that night. A significant clue emerged from CCTV footage, time-stamped Sunday, February 6th at 6:09 a.m. The footage revealed Mia standing at a bus stop at Vesterbro number 99. A black car pulled up near a Netto store, and after a brief exchange, Mia was seen getting inside. The next bus was not scheduled to arrive until 7:35 a.m., nearly 90 minutes later. It was a frigid morning, with temperatures hovering around freezing, and Mia was ill-prepared for the cold. The footage raised alarm bells. She did not signal the car to stop. Rather, it came to her. Frank Olson, the head of the investigation, noted that it seemed the driver initiated contact. Her friends and family expressed disbelief, asserting that it was completely out of character for Mia to enter a stranger's vehicle. Authorities speculated that the driver may have posed as an illegal taxi, a common practice in the region to evade tax and licensing fees. However, this theory remained mere speculation, further fueled by the fact that her bus would not arrive for quite some time. Unfortunately, the quality of the footage hindered the police's ability to clearly identify the vehicle's license plate. In a renewed bid for public assistance, the police released details of the events leading up to Mia getting into that vehicle. After bidding farewell to her friends around 6:02 a.m., Mia walked from Jefferson and God. She took a left onto Bordeaux, then another left into the Vesterbro district, arriving at Vesterbro number 99, where she waited for her bus home. Moments later, the black Volkswagen approached, and the driver struck up a conversation. Mia got in, and from that day forward, she vanished without a trace. A breakthrough occurred when police, utilizing advanced technology, successfully identified the vehicle's license plate from new footage. The vehicle bore parrot plates, a Danish term for license plates featuring multiple background colors. On February 9, 2022, at 11 o'clock a.m., 53 hours had elapsed since Mia's disappearance. The police traced the license plate to several addresses, specifically in Oostervro, Fruensdorf, and a summer house in Salzburg. Among these addresses, they found the vehicle matching the CCTV footage, a 2015 Volkswagen Golf at one of the locations. Yet despite this significant lead, Mia remained missing. The investigation took a pivotal turn when a critical lead surfaced, leading to the arrest of 2 men. Childhood friends. Their connection to the vehicle's license plate thrust them into the spotlight. Law enforcement was already familiar with their names. Their past was marred by petty crimes, including a bizarre incident where they had impersonated police officers during a soccer game. While they vehemently denied any involvement in Mia's disappearance, the vehicle linked to them painted a damning picture. This moment marked a significant turning point in the case. Within just 24 hours, the police escorted the 2 suspects to a constitutional hearing within Denmark's legal system. A constitutional hearing follows closely on the heels of an arrest, typically occurring within a single day. During this session, the arrested individuals are presented before a judge, along with the evidence that sparked their detention. The judge's role during the hearing is crucial. He examines the evidence at hand to determine whether to keep the suspects in custody or release them. This process, rooted in the Danish constitution, aims to safeguard the rights of the accused while ensuring public safety. On February 10, 2022, it had been 4 agonizing days since Mia vanished. Her family, friends, and the entire community clung to hope for her safe return. Meanwhile, a private constitutional hearing unfolded in the Albuquerque District Court. The court determined that one of the arrested men could be released from custody while the investigation would continue. However, the other man, a 36-year-old identified as Thomas Thompson, was ordered to remain behind bars. In a surprising turn, Thompson voluntarily agreed to a 4-week detention. An electrician by trade, he was characterized as polite, charming, and impeccably neat. Within the armed forces, he held the rank of sergeant and had practiced judo since childhood. The black Volkswagen, registered to Thompson, made him the prime suspect as the driver who picked up Mia on the morning of her disappearance. Police traced his movements through the vehicle's GPS system, although it had been manually disabled 4 hours prior to Mia's pickup. Fortunately, the digital forensic team was able to recover much of his route. This revelation redirected the police's extensive investigation towards his known locations, including Thompson's residence in Flockenstall. They also searched a summer house in Hammerbach and the woods of Dronninglund Storskoff. It was here that clues began to emerge, painting a chilling picture of Mia's fate. Leading into the Hammerbach forest, police dogs discovered Mia's keys, an elastic hairband, and 2 hair clips. The scattered belongings suggested she may have been fleeing, dropping items in her desperate attempt to escape. Their worst fears materialized in the dense underbrush of Dronninglund Storskoff, just a 10-minute drive from Thompson's home in Flockenstall. Here, investigators unearthed several shallow graves, appearing to have been hastily dug by hand. Within these grim confines lay dismembered human remains, cruelly hacked into over 200 pieces. The police braced themselves for the worst, suspecting these remains belonged to Mia. They swiftly sent samples for forensic confirmation. That very night, on February 10th, law enforcement held a press conference revealing to the public their heartbreaking conclusion that Mia had likely been murdered and dismembered, as they vowed to continue the investigation. 2 days later, on February 12, 2022, the remains were confirmed to belong to Mia, shattering the hopes of a community that had fervently prayed for her return. In a gruesome revelation, investigators discovered that Mia Skotthawk had been dismembered into a staggering 231 body parts. The coroner's report indicated that her body had been severed using an electric saw, a hobby knife, and scissors. Disturbingly, some remains showed signs of being partially dissolved with a potent alkali solution, specifically sodium hydroxide. The cause of Mia's death was confirmed as strangulation. But what transpired on that fateful day? At precisely 2:14 a.m. on February 6th, Thomas Thompson disconnected the GPS in his car, a calculated move to evade detection while he was out hunting for victims. However, fate intervened through a technical glitch. The GPS continued to log its position every 15 seconds. When questioned about his decision to disable the GPS, Thomas claimed it was to avoid harassment from a police officer, who, in his view, held a personal vendetta against him. His GPS reignited at 9 o'clock a.m. It is believed that the tragic events involving Mia unfolded between 6:09 a.m., when she entered his vehicle, and 9 o'clock a.m. That morning, Thomas pulled up to Mia, rolled down the passenger side window, and extended an offer for a ride, which she accepted. As she settled into the car beside him, Thomas recounted his version of events during the trial in June 2023. In his own words, he expressed surprise at seeing her waiting at the bus stop alone, with no one else in sight. He noted the long wait for the next bus and observed her standing there with bare arms, leading him to wonder if she might appreciate a lift. Thomas insisted he offered Mia a ride out of kindness. He described a flirtatious atmosphere in the car as he drove them toward the training ground at Camp Hammer in Hammerbach, claiming he wanted to show her something cool. Upon arrival, they reportedly agreed to engage in sexual activities. However, things took a dark turn when Mia became furious upon discovering that Thomas had once served as a sergeant. In court, Thomas later claimed that during the ensuing chaos, Mia accidentally fell, suffering a fatal twist to her neck. Alternatively, he suggested that she may have been strangled by the straps of her backpack as she exited the vehicle in the secluded woods of Hammerbach. His statements were riddled with inconsistencies. Initially, he had claimed she didn't trip until much later, only to later state she had stumbled upon exiting his car. These contradictions raised significant doubts about his narrative. Under the weight of fear and panic, Thomas admitted he was at a loss for what to do. In a horrific act of desperation, he placed Mia's body in his car and drove it back to his home. There, he dismembered her remains. His initial attempt to dissolve her body with alkali failed, leading him to resort to chopping her into pieces. He then attempted to conceal her remains, partially burying them while scattering others in a desolate area of Dronninglund Storskoff. In addition to this, he burned various items, including buckets, tools, coveralls, a car mat, and potentially her bag, though he struggled to recall the exact locations of these actions. Authorities believe Mia entered Thomas's vehicle in search of a ride on that chilly morning, With the next bus not scheduled until 7 o'clock a.m., it is suspected she either was coerced or deceived into getting in. Thomas drove her to Hammerbakar, where a nightmare awaited. Mia was chased, subdued, raped, suffocated, and ultimately mutilated. Investigators firmly dismissed Thomas's claim that her death resulted from an accidental fall. Coroner Asser Hedgehog Thompson, who conducted Mia's autopsy, testified on June 23rd, asserting that the systematic dismemberment appeared intentional, aimed at concealing the true cause of death. He believed suffocation was the most likely cause. On June 23rd, Coroner Asser Hedgehog Thompson, from Aarhus University, took the stand to testify about the disturbing findings from Mia's autopsy. He revealed evidence of systematic dismemberment, a gruesome tactic undoubtedly intended to obscure the cause of death. Yet he believed that suffocation was likely the fatal method employed. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that the narrative presented by Thomas Thompson was untenable. In a critical analysis, authorities emphasized that Mia Scott Hawk had not simply fallen. Sexual assault had taken place, with strangulation identified as the cause of her death. Yet, the absence of key body parts that could have confirmed suffocation cast a shadow over the case. Further evidence began to paint a harrowing picture. It suggested that Mia had fought desperately for her life, her belongings strewn across the forest floor. A hairband lay abandoned on the dirt road. Her keys were discovered further along, and 2 patches of her clothing were found hidden within the darkened woods. Despite Thomas's claims of never having ventured into that area, GPS data told a different story, revealing 3 recorded stops on the dirt road. Special Prosecutor Meet Bendix argued that this evidence indicated Mia's struggle for survival, utterly dismissing any misguided suggestion of mutual consent. The police believed that Thomas's actions were driven by a desire for deviant sexual gratification, a need to exert control and power over Mia. To suggest otherwise, to entertain the notion of mutual consent, was seen as an egregious affront to her memory. Additional evidence revealed that Thomas had been driving around Aalborg with his GPS turned off on the night of the murder. Before that fateful night, he had indulged in online pornography featuring younger girls. The extent of tampering with Mia's body was so severe that no semen traces were recovered. Nevertheless, investigators remained resolute in their belief that rape had occurred. DNA evidence linking Mia to Thomas's bedroom door handle confirmed she had been dismembered at his home. Throughout this grisly process, Thomas maintained a facade of normalcy. Over the course of several days, he bought pizza and sweets, went to work, and texted friends, sharing jokes and emojis as if nothing had transpired. If he had been shocked by Mia's accidental death, he exhibited little to no signs of it. Instead, he appeared almost pleased, as if he believed he had evaded justice. According to prosecutors, Thomas was convinced he had indeed gotten away with murder. But who exactly was Thomas Thompson? As the trial progressed, a shocking history came to light, one that likely fueled his audacity. Born on June 18, 1985, Thompson was raised in Seeby before relocating to Falkenberg, a small town with a mere 500 residents. He initially lived in an apartment before moving into his grandparents' former home. Raised in a stable environment devoid of violence, crime, or abuse, Thompson carved out a career in the military as a sergeant before transitioning to work as an electrician. While he was regarded as proficient in his job, those who knew him described him as a solitary figure. In 2009, Thompson's dark side emerged when he was convicted of being a peeping Tom. This particular crime involved leaving semen at the window of a girl, with incidents recorded in 2005 and 2006 in Frederikshavn. He had approached 2 girls, known as Louise and Marie, knocking on their windows and exposing himself. Only in Louise's case did authorities press charges, as DNA evidence confirmed his presence at her window. Marie would later recount the traumatic experience, recalling how she had been in bed when she heard someone knocking, initially believing it to be a friend. Turning on her light, she was met with an empty darkness outside. When she lowered the blinds, she was confronted by a man with his trousers around his ankles, engaged in a lewd act in the pouring rain. The haunting image of his blank, staring eyes drove her to wake her parents. They promptly contacted the police, leading to an investigation that would reveal more of Thompson's disturbing past. Additionally, his DNA was linked to an old assault case from Aalborg in 2010, where 2 women awoke to find a man sexually assaulting one of them in an apartment near Jomfru Ane Gade. In a harrowing moment, a young girl turned on her light, only to be engulfed by the oppressive darkness outside her window. When she rolled down the blinds, her heart raced as she spotted a man standing outside, his trousers around his ankles, performing a lewd act in the pouring rain. The memory of his blank, staring eyes haunted her as she ran to wake her parents. In a state of alarm, her parents contacted the police. The investigation took a critical turn when DNA evidence linked Thomas Thompson to a chilling incident from 2010, where he was implicated in the sexual assault of a sleeping woman in Aalborg. This assault had occurred in an apartment near Jomfru aan Gade, where two women awoke to find a man violating one of them. The man fled, leaving behind a haunting mystery that lingered unsolved for years. It was only recently that the connection between the cases was made, a revelation fueled by advancements in DNA technology. The chilling moment came when Thomas Thompson picked up Mia Skotthawk in his car, not far from Jomfru aan Gade. However, the statutes of limitations loomed over the 2010 assault, preventing any prosecution against Thompson. Yet, in a glimmer of hope, the two women involved, along with a witness, were summoned to testify in the ongoing case. The accounts from Thompson's ex-girlfriends painted a disturbing portrait of a man whose charm quickly morphed into controlling arrogance. They described how he would transform from polite to domineering, demanding his own way. Anger simmered beneath the surface if his wishes were not met. This unsettling behavior was echoed by a childhood friend, lending credence to the alarming narratives. The ex-girlfriends recounted harrowing instances of sexual transgression, including lies about his age and invasive surveillance during and after their relationships. One woman recalled a nightmarish episode where he bound her naked to a radiator against her will. Another revealed the sinister act of cutting her brake pipes after their breakup, for which Thompson had been convicted in 2010. A third woman discovered an unsettling Excel spreadsheet that meticulously documented women and their sexual activities on specific dates. Thomas Thompson, however, maintained his innocence, pleading not guilty to charges of rape and manslaughter. His only admission was to the indecent handling of corpses. The court, however, found insufficient evidence to establish that he had raped Mia or engaged her in sexual relations beyond his claim of mutual consent. Consequently, he was convicted solely of attempted rape. On that fateful morning in the desolate Hammer Bakar forest, only the killer, Thomas Thompson, and his victim, Mia Skotthawk, knew the horrific events that transpired. It was there that he lured the slightly intoxicated young woman after ensnaring her in his vehicle. After hours of aimless driving in search of a victim, on June 2, 2023, the now 38-year-old electrician was finally convicted of murdering Mia Skotthawk. Alongside this grave conviction, he was also found guilty of attempted rape. The court noted particularly aggravating circumstances in its decision, sentencing Thompson to custody after a mental evaluation. The Council of Forensic Medicine stated he was domineering, manipulative, and lacked reflection regarding his guilt. They assessed a high risk of recidivism regarding violence and immoral crimes. The council concluded that Thompson posed a significant threat to the life, limb, and overall health of others if left unchecked. Despite the weight of the evidence against him, Thompson continued to assert his innocence regarding the charges of murder and attempted rape. Immediately following his sentencing, he appealed to the High Court, eager to hear the judgment on his appeal by the end of May 2024, clinging to the hope of acquittal or a reduced sentence. In the face of overwhelming tragedy, Mia's parents expressed their gratitude to the community for its unwavering support. They requested no flowers, acknowledging that this case had instilled fear in many who ventured outside after quarantine. Elise Venz, a community member, offered words of encouragement, insisting that it was better to die trying to live than to exist in fear of dying. There was a lesson to be learned even amid such sorrow and danger. This case ignited a surge of community concern, reminding everyone of the fragility of life and the darkness that sometimes lurks just beneath the surface. In the face of such tragedy, one poignant statement resonated deeply. It's better to die trying to live than to live in fear of dying. This sentiment stirred a wave of community concern, igniting a collective call for action and vigilance in the wake of Mia Skotthawk's heartbreaking case. In a bid to enhance security, authorities installed additional surveillance cameras throughout the city center. Meanwhile, a passionate group of volunteers united to launch the Safe House initiative, dedicated to safeguarding young individuals on their journeys home. If this narrative resonated with you, consider liking and subscribing for notifications on upcoming cases. Don't forget to explore the playlist of my previous investigations displayed on your screen.